Advisory Special Agent, and he's a former special assistant to James Comey. He now works as a legal analyst for CNN. Josh, how do you interpret what happened just now?
Yeah, I think we've heard some of the political commentators say we need to dial this down. I think quite the opposite. I think the Department of Justice has shown that they are ready to dial this up. Because in a situation like this, and obviously there's a lot that we don't know about the specifics, the underlying potential crime, but anytime you're dealing with an elected official, it falls under the category of what the Department of Justice, what the FBI call a SIM, a sensitive investigative matter. And that means if you have someone who's a politician, a member of the media, maybe a member of the clergy, those types of legal action or any type of enforcement is going to be signed off on at the highest levels of the Department of Justice. So that's number one. The second part is because in this case with Robert Mueller, he's not simply going to task out to the Southern District some work or some allegation for them to deal with on their own. Again, that's going to be fused right at Main Justice, and again will be signed off at the highest levels before it actually goes over to another district to start an investigation. I think that this shows that, and folks can be warned that if during the course of investigating a crime, if investigators unearth some other type of crime, they don't simply turn the blind eye.
David Urban, want to give you a chance to weigh in.
Yeah, so as we've heard, in the Gates and Manafort case, Bob Mueller had no problem, no knock, guns pulled raid, which I've talked to folks in law enforcement, say they reserve those kind of raids for bad guys with guns who are going to put up a fight. It is very rare for folks to do no-knock raids on that case. And in that
That's
case,
not true.
All right, Josh, we'll come back to you in a second.
Josh, you had your chance. So, and in this case as well, you had Gates and Manafort on things that were happened in 2013, completely unrelated to this election. If this were the case that you're talking about here, you could have the same kind of thing. Like if it were that tightly tied to this president, Mueller could have easily done it.
The President of the United States had dinner with Michael Cohen 1 week ago.
Right.
As lawyer just might he said, Michael Cohen is my lawyer.
Right.
The highest level of justice, as Josh just said, has just signed off on an FBI unannounced raid on the President's personal lawyer's office.
Why was it filtered through the Southern District?
We don't know everything.
We don't know
why he
used it. But it doesn't stop anybody here from opining into the
I'm
thousands.
not opining. I'm saying that I suspect that to say that this is not a big deal strikes me as
I do want Josh, as a former FBI supervisory special agent, you're saying it's not true that the no-knock midnight raids are only done on bad guy drug dealers with guns. They go ahead.
That's right. And this isn't a disrespect to Mr. Urban. I mean, points for creativity. I understand the situation that he's in. I'm just saying that if you're a law enforcement officer and you are focusing on a crime, it doesn't just involve those who are dangerous. It involves those who may be destroying evidence. But the fact is, the point that was made has nothing to do with what I just said a moment ago,
Josh, so
as far as this being signed off at the
FBI
highest levels of the Department of Justice.
So, Josh, it's normal for the FBI to no-knock, guns drawn, on a matter like Mr. Manafort's? That's
now
a
you're
normal
saying something
procedure?
different. I didn't say normal. You just said it's not the case.
No,
and I'm
I'm
saying
just asking,
that in order to preserve evidence, the FBI will
Josh,
approach
just
the
answer my one
situation
question.
in that
Is it
manner.
normal or not normal for the FBI to no-knock, guns drawn in a Manafort-type raid? Yes or no?
What I'm saying is that it requires a judge to sign off on, and in this case, the FBI agents convinced the judge that it was warranted in this case. So the argument really is superfluous. What I'm saying is if you look at the case of the Southern District, this is separate than what Mueller is doing.
But I guess we can all agree that Mueller and now the Southern District in New York are using rather aggressive tactics.
Sure,
I mean,
absolutely.
And a judge signed off on it.
A judge signed off on it.
And the reason, it's not whether the guns are drawn. The fact is there must have been reasonable suspicion that if they didn't go in this unannounced way, documents would be destroyed. And a judge, not Mueller, a judge must have been convinced that that was a reasonable thing to worry about. Right. So this is a very big deal.
The
question is not, is this normal? There's been nothing normal about this administration, about anything that is an outgrowth of said administration or any investigation, whether we're talking about the Senate, the House, or the special counsel. There's nothing normal about this. So let's not normalize any of this. It's crazy. We were just, Bill, I hate to air you out, but just confidentiality talk. On the commercial break, we're talking about how this is like something out of a thriller movie. This is insane. I feel bad for y'all because you do, to his point, creative points to you, but you guys have to contort yourselves into unbelievable ways just to even make any of this make sense, and it doesn't. It gets worse.
Let's get to the point that no, it's great. I love it. Let's get to the point that Josh was making, though, that you would agree with, David Urban, is that this being a special. What's this, the term you use, Josh? A SIM.
A sensitive investigative matter.
Sensitive investigative matter that you would really want to cross all your T's and dot all your I's before you raid the offices of the president's attorney, let alone, as Gloria Borger reminded us and Bill Kristol just underlined, President Trump just a few days ago had dinner with him and made a show of his loyalty and support for him. I mean, that's aggressive.
I don't disagree, but why did Mueller feel like he had to punt it down to the Southern District?
Because it was outside the scope of his investigation, I guess is what Josh
His
said.
investigation is obtuse.
Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, let me just point out also, I mean, one thing that we're missing here is that the Department of Justice will referee investigations all the time. When you look at the various districts throughout the country, it is not unusual for one investigation to impact another. And so this isn't something that the DOJ is not used to doing. I think this further makes the case what Bill was saying earlier, that, you know, this is a bigger deal maybe than we're thinking, is because if the DOJ looked at this and said that this is not going to impact Bob Mueller's investigation, go forth and prosper, then that shows us that we're off to the races. And it's another a new line of inquiry, as we say, that you're going to have to look at.
Or maybe it's less important.
Well, no, I mean, look, I think we should not lose sight of a couple of things. With this case, there's a lot of unanswered questions. Where did the money come from? Mr. Cohen has offered different explanations.
This is for the Stormy Daniels
this is for the
payment.
Stormy Daniels payments, and we don't know about other things that they may have uncovered prior to this investigation. And we also know that the payment itself in the Stormy Daniels matter generated a suspicious activity report. Right. Basically, the Treasury Department, by the bank, the bank kicked it over to law enforcement and said, there's something strange here that merits looking at. So there's plenty of there for them to investigate.
But let's put a fine point on this. An FEC violation is a far cry from a criminal investigation.
Go ahead.
But it's also important to know, Evan, you brought up the payment. The bank also sent an email to Michael Cohen's Trump Organization email, which also was a